There is such a thing as money that is too fast. Whenever I read that sentence, I have to stop and say, this book was not written 3 months ago. This was, I was working on this for many years, but it was finished about 6 or 8 months ago. And if I had said that sentence in public 6 to 12 months ago, I don't think people would have, financiers, I think general public would have listened to it, but financiers would have not listened to another sentence coming after it. But now, because of what's happened in the last 6 months, people are having a different kind of conversation. There is such a thing as money that is too fast. Money that is too fast is money that has become so detached from people, place, and the activities that it is financing, that not even the experts understand it fully. Money that is too fast makes it impossible to say whether the world economy is going through a correction in the credit markets, triggered by the subprime mortgage crisis, or whether we are teetering on the edge of something much deeper and more challenging, tied to petrodollars, derivatives, hedge funds, futures, arbitrage, and a Byzantine hyper-securitized system of intermediation that no quant, no program trader, no speculator, no investment bank CEO can any longer fully understand or manage. Just as no one can say precisely where the meat in a hamburger comes from, parens, it may contain meat from as many as, that's the right answer. When I wrote the book, it says 100 in the book, and after the book went to press, I kept poking around and I found something that said in some cases it can be as many as 1,000 animals. So just as no one can say where the meat in a hamburger comes from, no one can say where the money in this or that security has come from, where it is going, what is behind it, whether if it were to be stopped and like a hot potato held by someone for more than a few instants, it represents any intrinsic or real value. Money that is too fast creates an environment in which, when questioned by the press about the outcome of the credit crisis, former Treasury Secretary Robert Rubin can only respond, quote, "No one knows," unquote. This was on a major television interview about 6 months ago. Anybody want to guess how much he was paid to come up with the conclusion that no one knows? It was more than $100 million, I can assure you that. This kind of befuddlement is what arises when the relationship between capital community and bioregion, when the relationships between capital community and bioregion are broken. And then I have a quote from David Orr. I'm sure a lot of you know David Orr, one of the leaders in environmental thinking and environmental studies at Oberlin. And this quote actually appears in the PowerPoint. I'm going to read it now, though, so you don't, when it comes up, there are too many words on the slide. I've joked with a few times that this may be the best paragraph in my book, and it's written by David Orr. And here's the paragraph. There is an appropriate velocity for water set by geology, soils, vegetation, and ecological relationships in a given landscape. There is an appropriate velocity for money that corresponds to long-term needs of communities rooted in particular places and to the necessity of preserving ecological capital. There is an appropriate velocity for information set by the assimilative capacity of the mind and by the collective learning rate of communities and entire societies. Having exceeded the speed limits, we are vulnerable to ecological degradation, economic arrangements that are unjust and unsustainable, and, in the face of great and complex problems, to befuddlement that comes with information overload. That's pretty much the whole story. So you've got, water, money, and information, and the concept of appropriate velocity. And then I say, as long as money accelerates around the planet, divorced from where we live, our befuddlement will continue. As long as the way we invest is divorced from how we live and how we consume, our befuddlement will worsen. As long as the way we invest uproots companies, putting them in the hands of a broad, shallow pool of absentee shareholders whose primary goal is the endless growth of their financial capital, our befuddlement at the depletion of our social and natural capital will only deepen. All right, now let me jump back a little bit. I lost my place. All right. This is the beginning of another chapter. You'll see the segue from the brain joke here. It is good. Do we need a segue from the brain joke? Can't ever have too many. It is good, it is appropriate that we use the left side of our brain to study markets and industry segments and capital flows, to measure risk and return, to mete out liquidity and diversification and various instruments designed to intermediate efficiently between producers, consumers, and the natural systems on which all life depends. But it is even better at this moment in history to use the right side of our brain and our whole heart, and whatever portion of our spirit can be brought to the task, to take the first steps, new steps, imperfectly charted steps, toward the realm of slow money. We need to steer money in its primary applications, that is, in those functions towards which it is deployed in the making of money, toward life, toward enterprises that enhance the quality of life, that preserve and restore fertility, biodiversity, and the health of bioregions and communities and the households that live in them, and away from enterprises that degrade quality in the name of quantity. This use of money, of investment capital, as an antidote to the disease of excessive quantification is, in the words of a veteran McKinsey consultant, tricky. He was paid not as much as Robert Rubin to say that, but he was paid more than he should have been for that. There is something of financial homeopathy in it, a drop of slow money under the tongue of the body economic. What will its effect be on the health of the whole system? We cannot know, but we can assert and affirm our hope, our intimation that its effect will be salutary. We need, in the words of a former Investor Circle member, to bring money back down to earth. We need to stop thinking about money as lubrication for a machine that is everywhere and nowhere and at no given moment, and to start thinking about money as irrigation for the field of our intentions, which are expressed right here, right now, where we live and where we work. We need to stop giving priority to the imperatives of money's explosive self-propagation and start giving priority to the imperatives of social implosion and impending ecological collapse. And before I continue, I feel like I want to say one other sort of macro thing. And that is, you're going to hear in the rest of what I read, it going back and forth between very high-level sort of meta vision things and some strategy and other pieces. And there's going to be a lot of vision in the PowerPoint too. To me, we're at a point where it's so critical to take the time to say what the alternative vision is and not be afraid to keep saying it even until we believe it and get it right. Because if you start doing it before you affirm that, you just get dragged back. You know, most of the, how many people here are involved in social investing in some way, either with their own money or as a professional or whatever? So, you know, it's not like we just woke up yesterday and decided, oh, we should use our money a little differently. It's been going on for quite a while, but and some of the people who are involved in the Slow Money Alliance are leaders in the social investment field. So what I'm going to say now is not a criticism of any person or any fund, but I do believe that we're at a juncture where we have to jump to the next generation of activity that much more directly solves the problems. Simply trying to, let's say, create a competitive rate of return by getting rid of the most egregious of this and the most egregious of that, that is not a bad thing, but it is not a sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. So you're going to hear a lot of vision, and I hope you'll understand the spirit of it is to really, it's like getting it so embedded in the DNA of this activity that when we go to market, we won't be pushed and pulled backwards. And because we're basically talking about throwing out all the existing benchmarks and starting over, which is, again, up until 6 months ago, might have seemed completely preposterous, but it doesn't seem so preposterous anymore. So stick with me when we go through the vision stuff. Oh. Well, I could have just kept reading. Much of what the social investment initiatives of recent years are aiming at can more directly, more fundamentally, be more fundamentally understood as a problem of the speed of money. Screened portfolios and shareholder advocacy work to heal the wounds caused by globalization and industrialization and corporatization. As critical as these means of redress are, they remain to some extent an exercise in wake management. Most of their benefits are achieved not by slowing the economic speedboat down, but rather by minimizing some of its impacts as it speeds through the harbor. Environmental degradation, a throwaway consumer culture, cheapened food, rich in empty calories and chemical additives, media programmers who live by ratings, nightly news reports that cover daily fluctuations of market indices. These are inevitable byproducts of an economy whose decision-making is driven first and foremost by the imperatives of financial markets, an economy in which money, unleashed through the power of technology and unfettered by either connection to place or the human face of exchange, has taken on a life of its own, a speed of its own. Fast money does violence to the web of relations on which the health of communities and bioregions depends. It is not enough to steer money in new directions. We must slow money down. We are, by the way, don't worry, we're not saying all money, but we are saying some and a statistically significant amount of money. We'll talk more about that later.